Hello and welcome to the September depot update from Dean Park. In this update I'm going to be showing you progress around about the office area, including a kind of how-to on installing and doing tarmac, and also I'll show you the installation of the office itself along with the interiors. I'll also be adding other bits of detail around about the depot area to allow other major tasks to take place. I'm now turning my attention to the depot car park area where the office will be, and this has been using the Woodland Scenics Smooth It plaster. And what I did initially was I just plastered the whole lot here and then sanded it down with various grades of wet and dry paper. Now that gave me a nice looking smooth finish, but when I placed my building on it, it was rocking a little, and you could see gaps at the bottom of the building between that and the plaster. So I had to rethink it. So I dug it up and I started again. And what I did was I designed and cut an exact replica, I'm talking exact, of the footprint of my office, even including where the steps, entrance steps will go. And then I placed that in. First of all, I primed it to seal the MDF. I placed it on the baseboard and then I plastered round about it. And when I sanded it all down, it's now completely flush and smooth. I've even got the little corner sections where the brickwork will stick out with the recessed windows. I had to work all that out with the actual sizes, so that took a bit of thought and a bit of design. What I'll do now is I'll just basically give it another quick sand to get some of the plaster off the top of the foundation base, if you like, the MDF foundation base, and the building should sit neatly on that. Now I know some people will say, oh, you should set your buildings into the plaster so you don't see the join with the bottom, and I endorse that view, but for this particular build it was going to be an absolute nightmare. So I've just made sure that the building sits 100% flat and that the plaster round about it is at least up to the level of the foundation. So I'll place the building on it just now and I'll let you see. The office has now been put in position, obviously minus its roof, and it exactly covers where that grey painted footprint was. Now if I put in the steps, for example, they also sit nice and flat with the building because they are part of the foundation base. So you've got no unsightly gaps around the bottom of the steps there. I'm quite pleased with how that's all worked out. It's a lot of work just to get an office block put in position, but I thought, I've spent several months on this office build. I don't want to plonk it on an uneven surface and have it with gaps and unsightly parts to it. So I've taken my time, as is my wont, and I've made sure that it sits firmly on a level base. I've checked it with a level. It's as level as it can be with the baseboard. I'm happy with that. I can now move on to doing the painting of the plaster to then start to make it look like tarmac, obviously with the patched areas, the cracks, and maybe some potholes as well. One word of warning: if you are using the Smooth It plaster, please do what I've done and cover the area around it. You'll see I've got tarpaulin everywhere because plaster will go everywhere, especially when you're sanding. I've masked off or covered up the back seam there, and I've even gone to the lengths of putting, if you can see it there, a cardboard strip along, so none of the plaster would even get near the polythene, and it also helped give it a nice clean edge down the side of the baseboard. If you'd watched previous videos of the Signal and Telecommunications Centre and the Caravan Park, you'll have known that I've added potholes into my tarmac surfaces. I've done the same here, but what I've done here is I've filled them again with some gravel. Now, sometimes you'll get a pothole and in a short-term measure they'll just cover it with gravel until the bigger repair is done. This is what I'm trying to replicate here. You'll notice I've kind of sanded it down. That's after I've put the gravel in. Now what I did was I put some, I think it was rocket card glue or something similar, into the potholes that I'd carved out, and then I've gone with some very fine Woodland Scenics ballast and I've sprinkled it in, not up to the height of the tarmac, so it's still set in a little bit, to show the kind of partially repaired, partially then worn away gravel, because obviously you put gravel in a pothole, cars go over it, lorries go over it, the gravel disperses and gets pushed everywhere. So the holes aren't filled with gravel, but they've got some gravel in the bottom of them. I've then sanded it down to kind of smooth off any imperfections, and what I really do now is top coat it again with a asphalt and concrete mix of the Woodland Scenics paints. Just quickly before I apply the next coat of tarmac paint, I've got a Langley brass etched drain cover there, and I've got two of them around the building, and they're next to the downpipes for the rainwater coming off the roof. Obviously the rain flowing on the tarmac has to go somewhere, so that it will make its way into these drains, which is next to the downpipes, so it'll go into the same main drain. If I take that out of the way, you'll see what I've done. I've cut a small rectangular, I've basically skimmed the surface off the plaster, and that's done using a Stanley blade and a very small flat screwdriver. And that'll allow the drain cover to sit just below the surface of the tarmac, as in real life. They don't sit on top of the tarmac, they sit level or below to allow obviously gravity to play its part with the flow of water. So another little detail there, just taking my time to make sure I add in the details that I want on the scene I want, in order not to rush it and regret not adding something in that I wish I had done. Once the paint surface had dried, I've taken a 1200 grade wet and dry paper across the surface just to take that uniformed dark grey, almost black coverage off. What that does is it highlights some of the imperfections, which is exactly what I want. You don't have a totally flat tarmac surface. In real life you've got slight undulations. For example, just around here there's a small depression that hasn't been picked up by the wet and dry so much, and with the drain right next to it, it's ideal because the water might gather there round about the drain. I've got the potholes which are not as obvious as they were, because obviously I've covered in some of them with the gravel, and this really gives me a good kind of basis to apply the next part, which is applying the top coat of kind of gravel and different effects of the tarmac. For this I'm using the Woodland Scenics asphalt and the Woodland Scenics concrete, and I've mixed them together in a saucer to give a palette of various greys. Obviously you want it lighter than the base coat you've got down there already, so you just mix till you get the one you want. And I use a small sponge, I think this is one of these scouring pads you get, and a rubber band to create this kind of bung, and then you would use that to dab it onto the surface. Now you're almost dry brushing it. You're loading the sponge up with paint, and then you're taking off the excess on a paper towel or a bit of paper next door, and then you're going to sponge it variously across the actual area, and then varying the greys as you go. So I'll show you that now in it will be a speeded up process. It's really simple and gives effective, realistic I think anyway, tarmac surfaces. you can wake up now. That's me finished doing that for now. What you don't want to do is just go over the area with one tone of the grey, and you certainly don't want to go over it just the once. I mean, I've been over some areas here 5 or 6 times with different shades of grey. It really is 50 shades of grey when you're doing this kind of stuff. I mean, there's my palette there. You can just see there. What I do is I put the paint on a bit of paper and then I dab the sponge into it. But you can see there that the varying tones that I've used. Because some tarmac will appear more worn, some with less of the chip covering on it, like I've tried to achieve maybe around the back area, where some area with more of the grey chips here, and just a varying tone. At the moment it's still drying, so when it dries I'll get a true sense of the different shades. But when you look closer into it, and certainly I can see it if the camera's picking it up, you know, it's darker underneath with light patches of almost the kind of grey granite kind of chips they used to lay down on these roads. These were the kind of roads in the 80s where they would tar them and then go across it with the chips, and for days and days afterwards you'd be getting stones getting thrown up into your wheel arches of your car as you went over the road until they bedded in, and you'd end up with a whole load of chips in the gutters at the side of the road where the vehicles had pushed them. It was great for getting a stone chip on your bonnet, I have to add, but you know, I've got a varying tone here, and again, I don't know where the camera's picking them up, the potholes aren't greyed to the same depth and colour as the top surface because they are deeper into the surface. That's the paint now dried. I'm quite happy with the effect. There's a varying tone of the greys, and you can also now see that the potholes are highlighted because of the difference in grey colours. That's the tarmac surface now done. I can now move on to populating the area with details, including obviously the office block itself. What I've done here is I've drilled holes in the baseboard, and that'll take the wiring from the building down underneath the baseboard and into the control panel. Now, these holes relate to where I've got hollow square section of plasticard or styrene, and that's where the thin wires for the LEDs go up, and obviously they come out the top into the room, and then they'll go upwards to the first floor and do the same. So these tubes are positioned the same on the ground and the upper floor. As I said, they relate to the holes underneath. You'll see a bit of the interior there with the pictures on the walls, the doors ajar, the floor tiles, the kind of off-grey 1980s style boring office wall. You've got the fire notices there, some maps. This will all be populated with furniture and workers as well. That's coming in very soon. If I take that out of the way, I had no problem with these two holes, although that one is above the tracks underneath, which is a bit of an issue, so I'll just have to make sure I manoeuvre the wires away from the trains. This one here had an issue with that because it's into the structure for the tunnel mouth. So what I had to do is I cut a channel and re-drilled a hole there, and that's where they'll feed through. So the wires will come down, be tucked into this groove, and then through the baseboard. So it allows the building basically to sit flat onto the tarmac surface like that. After months in the making, I finally got the Depo Office interiors completed. I'll take you through what I can. I'll start with the upper floor. This scene here, we've got a drawer unit with some files in it the chap's attending to. On his desk is a copy of the Financial Times. Clearly he's just come into his work and dumped his morning newspaper there. There's a chap trying to get in the door. I don't know if you could see it. You can probably just see his feet. If I lift the office up slightly, you'll see in there the plan view. Down at the bottom left desk we've got a small inbox, it's the blue thing, and he's got his newspaper on the desk as well. The desk to the right has got some depot plans on it. All the desks are from Scale Model Scenery, and you get the chairs with the kit as well. It's an excellent kit actually. I asked Justin to come up with a decent office interior for me, and he's come up trumps with this, I have to say. The office here, it's got a similar layout, the inboxes or the in trays. We've got a early computer there on the desk, along with a steel filing cabinet, and the man pondering his next duty there. Down at the bottom corner here, looking in, we've got the boss's office. He's got the blue chair with the armrests, and he's got a computer along with an early photocopier there, which a chap's waiting for his copies to come out. The office there with the 3 tables and the 2 smaller desks, again just a worker's table and an early computer there, along with a filing cabinet. You'll get a better view of the ground floor here. We'll start at the right hand side. We've got the kind of staff room canteen area. We've got a couple of vending machines, different style tables and chairs. We've got newspapers, one folded, one laid out, and the chap getting his morning snack. A couple of gents meeting in the main corridor. Remember, the main doors will be here and here, so they're shaking hands. We've got a fire extinguisher. We've got an office here with nobody in it just now. The blinds will be down on this building, and I'll talk about the lighting scenario in a minute. This one here, 2 gentlemen desks. We've got some plans overlapping there piled up. We've got an in tray, again some more work on the desk there. A chap looking at the route map, and this guy will be peering out of a window. And there's a similar office to the back there with chairs, desks and filing cabinets. What I'm going to try and do with the lighting is have all the rooms lit, but a system where I can change the configuration of the lights, so maybe some offices are not lit and some are lit, so they'll be separately wired for that. For example, the offices that haven't got anyone in them and the blinds may be down, I can then switch those ones off on a night scene, for example, so the offices are no longer getting used, while the ones that have got lights in them are maybe the ones on the late shift. The corridors will always have lights on, okay, so the upper and lower corridors and entrances will always have the lights on. So again, just a bit of variation in what I can achieve. It saves the whole building being lit all the time. And obviously I can have the situation where no lights are on at all. The office is now in position and all the lights are wired in. The 3 holes that I showed you previously, all the wires from the 13 LEDs have been fed through that under the upper baseboard, grouped together in a very tight space. I've cut my hands to shreds on the track pins poking through from above, but I've got all the wires now connected to terminal blocks, and the grand lighting of the office will come in October. The office itself is fixed in position. You can't move it around because of the wires. It's not glued down. I can still get in to access it for maintenance, but I don't really want to go there. Those of you who followed me for years will know that the arrival or the appearance of the ScotRail BG coach there means that I've been doing some track work or track alterations. I've been testing the gauging basically for the coaches and the clearance, so that's what I've been doing. I've obviously been relaying some track at the 2-lane shed end as well. You'll notice here on the baseboard I've got the orange piping going through to feed the wires for the point motors and stuff like that, so I've started to install all these things. That has to be done before ballasting takes place. You'll notice also I've coated the baseboard in brown just to give it a base colour for then adding ground coverage. I've also got little bits of yellow masking tape, you'll see, and I've basically, from the end of phase 1 of the electrification, which is the masts that I built myself, I've now worked out where they're going along the front of the TMD. I've decided to go with scratch built ones there, the head spans that I've previously built. It allows me more flexibility where they go and the width of them. So to electrify just the 2 main lines, I'm having to do quite a major electrification kind of task here, which is, I think it's 16 new masts to be built, so that just takes me past the depot. So that'll be coming in the next 8 to 12 months, depending on how I get on with this depot in front of you. Just very briefly, the cable trunking at the back of the 2 main lines there. In the past, I've used 10 Commandments cable trunking for the majority of the layout. That's because you can bend it around a curve, and it's quite versatile in where it goes. The trunking that I've got here is slightly wider and larger, and it's the Wills kit stuff. It can only be laid straight because of its rigid construction. So along the front of the TMD, I've installed, or I will be installing, some of the Wills kit trunking, and then I'll obviously go back to the copious amounts of stock that I've got of the 10 Commandments. I just thought I had this in my collection, in my kind of stock drawer. I thought I would use it. It's been kind of given its first coat, but it'll all be coated with concrete precision paints, and then as I've installed it, it'll be weathered along with the ballast. I'm often asked, what control system do you use for your signals? Well, first off, I use CR signals, okay? The base of one you can see there. And the rule of thumb with signalling, in a kind of layman's terms, there's 2, 3 and 4 aspect signals. 2 aspect signals have a red and a green light. 3 aspect signals have a red, yellow and green light, and 4 aspect signals have a red, 2 yellow and a green. Now, if I've got, for example, on my lower main lines, I've got 3 aspect signals, which means I've got 3 signals in the actual loop of track, okay? And they need 3 of these boards, 1 with each signal, and they're all connected to each other through wire, so they all talk to each other. This particular one is a board mounted one. It screws to the underside of your baseboard, and these 2 sensors poke through in between the sleepers. Very easy to install, okay? But what is easier to install if you get the extended wire version. This particular one is for a route indicator signal, which let's not go into that just now, but the sensors are on wire, which allows you to install this green unit a distance away from the signal, for example in an area that is quite difficult to access. And it's a lot easier as well to line up, because you don't have to worry about lining up these 2 and not lining up the whole board, okay? So I would recommend use the extended versions of these green boards. Now, what are these green boards called? Right, again in basic terms, there's an ERDASC 4, and
that is the actual board, okay? And if you've got 3 signals in a loop, you need 3 of these. You've got 4 signals in a loop, you need 4 of these, and so on, alright? You also get mass sequencers, which is an automated one, which this is, and it's got the wee potentiometer on it there. And what happens is, as the train goes past, after a period of time, it'll automatically go to yellow and then automatically go back to green. And you can have one of those in your sequence. I've got one in every loop. So on the bottom main line, I've got 3 signals, 2 are DASC4s and 1 mass sequencer. And they're all linked in series and they all talk to each other. And as a train goes past, it goes to red. Train goes past the next one, this one will go back to yellow. Train goes past the third one, this goes back to green. So in theory, the time your train gets back round to it, it's at green again. But having this mass sequencer allows you to manipulate the timings a little bit. I hope that's cleared it up for a few folk that have asked me. It's not difficult once you get the boards in front of you and think, okay, right, I now know what to do. If you have any questions, I'd email Clive at Heathcote Electronics. He's very good at explaining it. If you know, when I first started, I had no idea at all, and he talked me through it quite well. So I would email him if you've got any questions, or obviously get back to me. Just very briefly, I got a nice message from Tom Quayle, and he's from the Edinburgh and Lothians Model Railway Club, and they're kind of looking for new premises just now. So I'd said I'd give them a little shout out. If anyone watching this is in a position to assist Tom with his premises issue, could you please contact Edinburgh and Lothians Model Railway Club? I'm sure they would be welcoming of your assistance if they can get it. Well, that's it for the September depot update. I hope you've enjoyed it. Now that I've got the office and the tarmac in place, progress should start to pick up on the actual depot area itself. I'm still scratch building a couple of structures to go low relief at the back of the depot, but that'll not stop me getting on with the ballasting and the starting of the weathering and detailing of the depot. So stay tuned for more progress in the next month. Again, hope you enjoyed it. Any questions, get in touch. Cheers just now. Before I go, I'd just like to thank and welcome my new subscribers, especially the ones who've come across my channel as a result of the two publications I had in local newspapers this month, one being the Fife Free Press and the other being the Courier. I've had a lot of good feedback from this. I hope it's done the online model railway community a bit of good. You know, if they come and visit Dean Park, they're going to see other channels out there, the model railways. So hopefully it's not going to do us any harm, and maybe get some youngsters into the hobby as well, which is really what we desperately need. If you like what you've seen here at Dean Park, why not check out Everard Junction? The footage for his layout is at the end of the video, and you can head over to Everard Junction to check out what he's been up to lately. The link to the equipment I've used in this video from Scale Model Scenery is in the description below. That is the orange trunking and also the interiors for the office. If you want to check back with my earlier videos when I did the Railway Laser Lines 2-lane depot shed build, you'll get a discount voucher there, Dean Park 10, to get yourself 10% off that shed. So check out the previous video I did on the Railway Laser Lines build, and the link to that will be at the end of this video.